Hey friends, if you are or have participated in the Compassionate Inquiry Professional Training Programme, please join us from June 17th to June 19th at Renewal, a CI summer solstice retreat hosted by Sataram Kaur and 18 CI facilitators from around the globe. In this immersive journey into renewal and transformation, you'll experience guided practices, nature immersions, creative activities, small group workshops, connection circles, meaningful conversations, and much more, all designed to support your journey inward as we celebrate the solstice in community. Tap the link below in the show notes to learn more and secure your place.
This is the Gifts of Trauma podcast, stories of transformation and healing through compassionate inquiry. Welcome to the Gifts of Trauma podcast presented by Compassionate Inquiry. Irina Sadakova, I'm delighted to be speaking with you today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, as we do in Compassionate Inquiry sessions, I'd love to invite you to share your intention for this conversation for yourself and for our listeners.
My intention for this conversation is to share my experience from where I was before and now. And also for listeners, it's probably that my story will help other people to have a hope, to start to love themselves more, and to be more regulated and trust more in life.
That's beautiful. Trust more in life. I love that. Thank you so much, Irina. Now, you said in our initial communication that you have a strong calling to share your own gift of trauma, what you've gained through your personal trauma journey. And I'm looking forward to getting into that. But first, I'd like to share a few key points about you with our listeners to frame up this conversation. Now, you are a Qigong practitioner, a compassionate inquiry practitioner, an energy therapist. I noticed that you're certified in Ericksonian hypnotherapy, and you are an IFS, internal family systems informed therapist. And you're also an educator. And in addition to all this, you've got a deep passion for supporting personal transformation, which was reflected in your intention. You were born in Soviet Russia. You speak 3 languages, English, Russian, Swedish, and you currently live in Sweden and Stockholm. So can you share a bit more with our audience about who you are as a person, the human behind those credentials?
Okay, thank you very much. I thought about it before the interview, and I understand that I'm a very positive person. It's probably like the characteristics is in front of me, and it can be very strange if someone know my story, because I went through a lot of things in my life that I realized recently being in the compassionate inquiry. But it's also like evidence for this sentence that the child have very good in being seen, held, loved in first 3 years old of life. So what's happened then can be dramatic, but the resilience is on the place. And probably it is my case. And otherwise, I'm a person who loves presence, to be present.
We need more of you in this world. Most people love being in their head, not present in the here and now. And I'm sure that positivity, as you get into your story of your resilience, they will play a key role. Thank you. Anything else you'd like to share?
I'm not shy, but sometimes when someone asks me, share something about yourself, what I should share. But faith in life, being in the presence, being for myself and being for people, I feel right now.
Okay, thank you. So being positive, being present for yourself and for others. That's lovely. Now, I'd like to hear about how life shaped you, if I can put it that way, into the woman you are today. And I'd like to, if we can do this in chronological order, Can you take me back to your childhood in Soviet Russia? I'd love to hear about that. Where did you live? What was your early family life like? What was happening around you, societally, politically, economically? Whatever you'd like to share.
That's exactly what I thought about before the interview, that probably I need to take several generations back in order to understand everything that happened with me. And if it's okay.
Yes, absolutely, please.
And I try to find this point that I think that all our traumas is culturally colored. And I can't say for all Russians, but for myself. Okay, we start from the generations.
Yes, please go back as far as you wish.
Exactly. I was born in the Soviet Russia in the far north, in the city called Arkhangelsk at the White Sea. And we start with my grandmother. My grandmother born in a rich family, in a farmer's family before the Russian Revolution. And the tragedy the whole family experienced when the revolution came, and the whole family have been destroyed, property confiscation, disposal. And my grandma was very young, and in certain points she found herself in the big city. It's not a so big city, but for her it was a very big city. And then surely her destiny was printed by everything that happened in Russia in that moment. I actually don't know a lot, because in Russian families is like taboo to tell about what's happened with previous generations, but I know a little bit. I need myself to puzzle it together. And actually compassionate inquiry helped me to do it. She suddenly found herself in the middle of the Second World War with 3 children and alone working at the bread factory. And one of her children died, and with 2 girls. One of them was my mother and another was my aunt. And then at the end of the war, she suddenly became the people's fiend. It was some kind of in Soviet Russia when the people was to get this status, and she found herself in prison. And the 2 small girls was one of at the orphanage, and another one is some kind of labor community work to make a food for people. I still very emotional. Even I walked on it a lot. And I'm talking about it, and these puzzles that I recently put together, and I don't know exactly, but something happened with my mom in orphanage.
Yeah. Was your mother the younger one?
Yeah, it was, yes, the younger one.
So her sister was older and she was sent to the labor place, and
Yeah.
your mom was in the orphanage. Oh.
Yes. Yes, I need to breathe.
Yes, take a moment, please. This is your family you're talking about.
Yes, it was something happened there, because she died 30 years after it.
Your mom?
Yes, from systemic lupus.
Oh. And it began in the orphanage.
I don't know exactly. Through this knowledge that I get in compassion, inquiry, and the Gabor, I can imagine that it was set up there.
Yeah.
But then my grandma came back and took the girls back. And so I don't know what happened with them. We just grew up. At the point that I came to life, my mom and my father had a relationship. But again, it's like cultural and it's a political thing. We couldn't marry each other just because my grandma was in the prison and my father worked in the international ship. And if we would marry, she would lose his job. That I know. It's something that I know.
Yeah. It was very political. Yes.
It was very political. And at the moment I came, he left my mom. And I came to the world in the huge abandonment trauma. But my grandma and my mom became my family. They loved me, care about me. It had a very difficult time. I know it. But they give me something in the early years that I could sustain myself through everything I went. And probably this story was a bit long, but I feel in my body their grief, their sadness, and their struggle.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes, and I just carry it through my life.
Well, you can, just in the short generations you shared with us, you can see the pattern. Your grandmother was raising your mother and your aunt on her own, and then your mother ended up raising you with the support of her mom, your grandmother. But it's a repeating pattern, women raising children on their own.
Yeah, and it was quite common in the Soviet Union. But it's after the war and all of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long did you stay? How long did you live in Russia? Were you grown when you left? Take us forward a little bit from where you stopped.
No, I moved from Russia when I was growing up. But before it's that my mom died, then I was 12 years old. And I was raised by my grandma, and she died when I was 18. Yeah.
Take a moment whenever you need. You can feel how emotional this is for you still. These are your people who raised you. Yeah. So at 18, you were in charge of your life.
Yeah. But it was like when my mom died, I just went to this beautiful, I can say beautiful world of shutdown.
Yeah.
And this beautiful world of shutdown, completely numbed, actually helped me to survive.
It's a very good coping mechanism. Absolutely.
Yes, now I understand that.
Yeah. So tell us the story. Like, how did you leave Russia? How did you choose where to go? What unfolded next?
What unfolded next, that I lived like 10 years in my beautiful world of shutdown. And I don't remember exactly these 10 years. It was quite a lot of disconnection, which actually saved me. But then suddenly life came online. And I already had this belief that I am not good enough to have a father. And I'm very small because I have no relatives at all. And I should be small because otherwise people can hurt me. And also that life is something to be controlled. Because I'm alone.
Yeah.
I don't know how to live life.
The third generation in your family to be on your own.
And then happened, I started to learn how to live life. I started to go through a shutdown. I create my own family. And as a parent, I left my own family. We separated with my husband. And I raised my son on my own.
Again, wow.
Again, yes, it's a huge multi-generation pattern. Then I started to work. I started to work between Sweden and Russia. And something inside of me, it's like feeling that I need to leave Russia in order to survive. And then the things just started unfold this way. And I get to study my master in Sweden. I start to work in Sweden. And I am so grateful to this country because I really get my second life here.
And it was instinct that took you there. You didn't know anybody. It was just this instinct. Your heart was saying Sweden. Probably could have been anywhere, but it was Sweden for you.
Yeah, it's probably also generational. It's probably my initial family centuries ago came from Scandinavia. Russia.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there was something in you just calling you home.
Yeah. Yeah. Something just calling me home.
Well, you said earlier, I carried the weight of multi-generational trauma and spent decades in a free state. So thank you for sharing how that unfolded. And you also said it was a long road to finding my way out, and you've shared some of that journey with us. You also mentioned before we started talking that overcoming the trauma of abandonment has shaped your compassionate and intuitive approach. I wonder if it's your trauma or if that's also a generational trauma, that abandonment, because it certainly plays out in your grandmother's life, your mother's life, and your life. And your father did leave, and your mom did pass away, and your grandma ended up dying. Is there anything else you'd like to add to what you've shared?
Yeah, I agree with you because really the gift of my trauma is intuition. And I probably still can be quite disconnected socially. But at the same time, I can be connected in the felt sense, with the people. And with the person who's sitting in front of me, and in any work I do for the people and with the people, it's not understanding that I feel. And I feel before the people speak. And I think that it's also generational gift because I can see these qualities in me, and I could see when I was a child these qualities in my grandma. She could do it too.
She would have needed to survive the revolution. A girl, as you described, she was in a wealthy family. She wouldn't have had knowledge or tools. So she had to trust her instinct, her intuition. Like if someone was maybe from a more working class background, they would at least have more tools. They'd have more knowledge, more skills. But someone from the wealthy family, as they used to talk about the aristocracy, it's amazing what can happen to a human being when they are facing what your grandmother faced. Yeah. I wonder if you could share a little bit for our listeners how that abandonment trauma showed up in you. You talked about going into a freeze state, and you mentioned briefly in social settings, it can be difficult for you. I have to imagine there would be a lot of trust issues because someone who's been abandoned and has an abandonment trauma, you've trusted someone who let you down, even if it wasn't intentional, like your mom did not intend to leave you, but she did.
Yeah, it is. And actually, I can say that the certain amount of time that she left me, I was angry in her.
Absolutely. That's normal. Absolutely.
I was very angry in her. That is not logical for sure, but it's, as you said.
Very human.
Yeah. And thank you for mentioning these trust issues with abandonment trauma. It was actually a little bit different because my coping mechanism is to be small and a little bit naive. And probably this naivety, trust somewhere inside of me, yes, I didn't trust. But in front, this naivety helped me to show people that I trust everyone. No boundaries. I trust everyone.
Wow. And that also makes sense because when you come from a background like yours, not that it's a common background, but as we know, as we go through the compassionate inquiry training, there is this neural wiring, the neuroception. So you had probably never felt safe anywhere. So you did not know what safe and not safe was. So you trusted everybody coming from a place of naivety. And that naivety plus intuition, that gift. And that seems to have worked for you, which is quite amazing given what you went through.
Yeah. what is it? Thank you to mention it. And it's like a little bit inside and realization for me right now, revelation. Yes, it worked for me. You know what? I never taste drugs. I never been on alcohol. I never smoke. I just didn't understand why people do it. Even if we are going to losing a mother in early age and then actually be responsible for my life from very early age, it could be normal. But I was so comfortably numbed that I didn't need it.
Yeah. And there was something in you with that intuition. There was a certainty that it would all work out. Wow. Thank you. So you also said that you see a lot of other people struggling with the same survival patterns. So is that the freeze? Is that the functional freeze? Are you seeing lots of people walking around frozen, or is it something else?
It's, yes, I see people in freeze. And I see this pattern that I actually observed in myself to go to the shell, to be comfortably numbed. And also, yes, I see another pattern that if we're talking about abandonment trauma, we're talking about also the belief that I'm not good enough.
Right. Because why else would you be abandoned?
Yeah. Why I should be abandoned? Why my father abandoned me? I'm not good enough to have my father. And there is another side of this. I'm not good enough. If I'm not good enough, I would like to be perfect.
I know it well, Irina. I was adopted as an infant, so I got gifted with that as well. That duality. It's if I can just be good enough, then I can prove my worth. So I can't be good. I have to be the best. So thank you for bringing that out. And a lot of people you work with, please tell us a little bit more about how that shows up for people.
Yeah, but it's also how this shows up for me. And I have, I think, 12 years education on a high level. So I'm a very educated person.
Yes, that's a lot of education.
It's a lot of education. I think it's actually the driver for it that I'm not good enough. And then I see in the people this, I'm not good enough. I need to be perfect. I see how much energy I put it in there to just to boost being so small and just boost in myself to be bigger. But this is the wrong way.
It's exhausting.
It's very exhausting.
Yeah. And like 12 years higher education, that's 2 PhDs.
Yes, some kind of my intuition said stop on the master level.
Yes. That's interesting too, because you need to be the best, but maybe you didn't want to get too big when you got there.
Ah, yes. But probably in that point of life, I start to not understand. So understanding it's not so much, but just feel that there is something else in the world. There is some kind of qualities that I didn't learn, that I didn't know, but they are very amazing because you can be yourself and you don't need to put in it a lot of efforts. And that was probably the change point for me in my life. Then I stopped boost myself such a way. Even I boost myself, I still inside of myself was very small child. And then I start to see this way and I start to step on this way that something else opens for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it took years.
Yeah. Just as it did when you had that intuition to go to Sweden.
It is. Yeah, you're right. Thank you to mention it. Yeah, absolutely. It was very intuitive.
Yeah. So it's so many conflicting motivations to stay small, stay safe, be perfect, boost yourself, prove your worth. I wonder if I could just carry on here. How did you come to be an educator? Did you always want to teach? I know often teachers are great students, And you clearly are a great student, but how did you decide to go into education?
By chance.
Intuition?
No, life. I could say life.
Life, okay.
You know what? That I thinking right now, I just thankful for my guide. I can say that the most unlogical things that I did in my life was the best things that I did. And it's also just illogical, just okay. I'm go to the pedagogical university. And I didn't want to teach, just because it's a pedagogical university. Just because it's languages, it's a psychology. But I didn't want to teach. And I teach the whole life almost.
When you say your guides, is it ancestral presence? Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. It's ancestral. I can't say sure, but I feel this presence. I feel that someone is helping me. Otherwise, how? Otherwise, how could I, without knowing what life is, how could I make these choices in my life? This is something else that helps me.
Thank you for sharing that. I don't know this for sure, but I believe it's a presence that shows up for many of us, but so many of us are to a certain degree checked out of life and we don't notice. We just think it's a synchronicity or a chance, or maybe we're lucky, but interesting that it could all be guided for us by those who love us and have walked this path before. Thank you. So the next question, you were a teacher most of your life. How did you come to be a therapist? How did that unfold from your teaching role?
I still teach. I think it's also like internal, and I think it's also like this gift that I carry from the generation. So I carry a lot of grief, but I carry a lot of talents. And these gifts just started to unfold inside of me. When I was in a situation that I didn't know what life is, and it was okay, it was a lot of struggle. It was a struggle to live in Russia in 90s. It's a lot of struggle there, just with the ordinary things. But then inside of me, something started to push me, and I start to struggle more. I start to struggle more because I couldn't see that even I am a positive person, but I couldn't see the positive sides in my life. I start to feel very clearly I'm missing something. And at that point, I start to do yoga and I start to feel my body a little bit more, because to feel body when you're numb is not a case. So I start to feel my body, and then I practiced yoga probably more than 10 years, and suddenly I tried Qigong and felt in love in this and start to develop myself in the Qigong. And Qigong is the way of living. And Qigong is just open this gift. I start to feel my body. I start to be in my body. I start to feel other person. I start to work with energy for myself in the real life. And life became bigger without I boosted. It just became bigger.
You didn't have to do anything.
I didn't have to do anything. I just get a lot of perspectives, other things. I start to feel more. I start to feel people more. I start to feel myself more. And that was amazing. It was really amazing.
It sounds like the experience where you were living in black and white, and all of a sudden the color started coming back in.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. It's really so. The colors come in my life.
Yeah. The colors and the sounds would have come louder and clearer. Wow. What an experience.
Yeah. I'm so grateful for it.
I'm sure there are many people that are grateful you found it too. Now, I'm wondering, in your shift into this experience and opening up more to therapeutic approaches, obviously yoga, then Qigong, how did you find the other approaches, compassionate inquiry, Ericksonian hypnotherapy? Was there an order? Like you found one first and then the next? Or I'm going to guess that your intuition led you to these.
Yes.
Or life presented them a book. You happened to hear about a book or a teacher.
Yeah, it's both. It was intuition, and also it was like a kick to my bum.
That's okay. Life gave you a kick in the bum. I love it.
Life gave it a very big kick in my bum.
Yeah.
And if we're talking about compassion to inquiry, it was it. I started to listen to Gabor Mate videos. Many people in the world, someone told me, listen to him. And I started to listen. And then some difficult thing happened in my life. And I was like in a despair. What is the world? It's a despair situation in myself. No, it's a despair. Yeah, in a state of dysregulation, and guides, intuition. Can I say this word? The universe sent to my computer advertising about the retreat with Gabor Mate. And it was the Corona time. It was the online retreat, and I was very desperate, so that I was lucky to talk with him on this retreat. And I can say that Gabor Mate changed my life in 15 minutes. Literally.
Yeah. So you shared what was happening and he gave you a different perspective, perhaps.
Yep. He gave me a very different perspective, and I experienced the shift.
Yeah, he has this beautiful way of framing things up. It's not your fault.
Yes.
How could you have responded any other way given your background?
So it's not my fault, and it's also about my controlling inner life. And it was dramatically shift in me. And then after this, I started to learn myself about the compassionate inquiry. And then the compassionate inquiry was open for the educators, and I jumped in.
Wonderful. And when was that? If you can put a date on that.
I jumped in the May 22.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I'm just going to ask you about the year-long program, which is the first step. What shifted for you when you went through the training?
Yeah, it's a lot. It shifted a lot. I understand right now that I was quite prepared by yoga and Qigong, but compassionate inquiry became the big puzzle in this world that have been unfolded and still unfolding for me. So it gives me a lot of understanding about the generational trauma, about what I'm carrying, and it started to clean up my trauma. It started to give me a lot of other perspectives. And yes, the first year of the compassion to inquiry is for sure to get these perspectives. I don't know, it's so much wider. It's so much space. It's so less opportunity just to go to the shell and hold to something that you probably need to let go.
Yeah. So if I can go back to that metaphor that I came up with, you went from the black and white picture to the full color with surround sound. And now with compassionate inquiry, you've got a panoramic view. It just keeps expanding out. And I wonder for those who are listening who haven't experienced the compassionate inquiry training, how did that show up in your everyday life? What changed? Could you give some like concrete examples before you would do this and then after you did that?
It showed up mostly in my reactions, and some things still showing up. But the beauty in it that you probably have some kind of, yes, I'm not good enough. I'm not belong. People don't see me, and so on. And it's following you in everyday life. But probably you do something good, and people do not react. So don't say to you, "Oh, you did something good." They can't see me. They can't see me. And went through this first year of compassion and inquiry. I suddenly start to realize I'm not reacting anymore. I see the people, I'm not reacting anymore, and I see why people do it.
Mm.
It's really the way to be compassion to yourself and compassion to other people. Not to see that another person would like to do something bad to you, but to see what is underneath people's reaction, people's words, people's action.
You see what's driving them.
Yeah,
You can see like the mechanics of why they behave the way they behave. Yes.
yeah, why we behave the way they behave. And it gives a lot of compassion. It gives a lot of compassion.
Yeah. So you can see maybe someone gets angry and you see the scared child through that anger. And rather than responding with anger, you can respond with compassion. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Now, I wonder if we could speak a little bit about your work as a therapist. What do you specialize in, and who tends to show up in your therapeutic practice? What types of do you work with?
Thank you for the question. And I can say that the people who probably has the same struggle that I have had, I'm working with right now. And the people with eating disorder, the people with abandoned trauma, some youngsters which are confused in life, and it is reflect my early years too. So the people who search in transformation in life, who search in transformation to be more resilient, to be more emotional balanced, to the people who is in the movement, do not be in movement physically, but the movement towards this discovery that life is a little bit wider.
People who are opening, who are in their own version of their transformation from black and white to colored, surround sound to panorama view. Beautiful. Thank you. That makes perfect sense. And they would relate so strongly to you because you're that much further ahead on a similar path to what they're walking.
Yeah. And I see them, some person coming to me, I can see myself in this person. And I can see that it's like a collaboration between us. I'm trained in the compassion inquiry. I am trained by life. And I hope that I can help from my higher potential. But it's a little bit like collaboration, working with the people and help them on the path.
Yes, thank you. Something that I came across that I'd like to ask you about. You are dedicated to raising awareness about the effects of trauma, particularly within the field of education. I'm curious, how do you do that? How does that play out?
Thank you for this question because it's like my passion. Because I'm still teaching, I'm in education, I teach adult people who is coming to Sweden with different kind of trauma. It's a refugees, it's a people who just been extracted from their countries, dramatical circumstances, and I can see different colors of trauma. I can see different colors of trauma that culture put on it. And by compassion inquiry, I can have language with these people who struggled inside of themselves because they carried trauma of leaving their countries. Whatever reason it is, it's all time big change in the life. It's all time stress. It's all time something that contracts inside. And by compassionate inquiry, I have a language to talk to them and to talk to their trauma, to ease the situation that they can learn. Because this is polyvagal theory. If someone is stressed, if someone in shutdown mode or fight or flight, it's very difficult to learn. And my patient to help them on the learning path to regulate, to go to these learning possibilities for them, or possibilities to their life in another country.
Thank you. We had a guest on a few weeks ago, Irma, and she was a refugee in the Bosnian War. And she was talking about her experience as a refugee. And I can't imagine, she was a child at the time, but being in school, I know you're not just talking about children, but being in school, not knowing how long you'll stay in a particular community, being an outsider, not speaking quite right, having to learn a new language maybe, and having to do your studies so much. It's such a burden. So I'm very glad that you are addressing this. And you're also an advocate for trauma-informed education. And you offer international training for educators on self-care, emotional regulation. And one thing I'm going to ask you to define, sustainable pedagogical practices. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's connected actually what we have been talking about, helping people to just relax. And the education, it's a relational domain. It's the relational between the teacher and students. It's relational between the students. It's relational between teachers, students, and the school. And it's relational much more bigger to the culture. And for sure, for example, if we're talking about the educators, and if the educators probably not so much aware that the people is coming with the trauma, like you talked about, I can understand her because I see these people who is displaced and can't find the ground under the feet.
Yes. Yeah, especially if it's like her and they keep moving. They have to go here, then there. It's got to be very not only dysregulating, but disorienting. It's what day is it? Where am I?
Yeah. And you don't know what is okay to say in this country, what is okay to do, what is not okay to do. It creates a lot of frictions in the educational system, in this part of the educational system that I know very well. And what I'm patient about, to work with the educators and to work with the students and to work that this process is actually education. It's a big process. This process can be sustainable because in other side, we are talking about the burnout of teachers. And another side, we're talking about the stressed and distressed students. And it's not sustainable. And it's, again, coming to polyvagal theory. Then if you're numbed, if you're in a fight flight, it is very difficult to learn for educators and for students.
Yes, for everybody. And it's so important that you are doing this work because I'm thinking back several years ago, there was a massive influx of Syrian refugees into Canada, which is where I was born. And I can imagine these non-trauma informed Canadian teachers. They've got the challenge of new students coming into their classroom already disoriented and dysregulated from a culture that they're not familiar with, trying to integrate, trying to learn in a language that is new to them, and then not understanding the trauma aspect, not knowing how many camps or how many stops these refugees have made on this journey to be welcomed into Canada. I can see why both sides need support and understanding and compassion, for sure.
Yeah, sure. Compassion is really a key word, and it's really, yeah, and I can relate to what you say right now. Yes, we also in Sweden had a lot of immigration, and really, it's so even painful to think about their way to Sweden, what they went through to come here.
Yeah. And I remember Paul Sunderland had a quote about adoption, where every aspect of the adoption triangle, if you think of just the birth parents, the adoptive parents, and the adopted child, it's all born of grief. The birth mother didn't want to give up her child, but she had no choice. The adoptive parents oftentimes couldn't have a child, so there's grief there. And the adopted child doesn't have their background, their roots. So in a similar way, people who are experiencing life as a refugee, they didn't want this war to start. They weren't involved. It wasn't their fault. They didn't want to have to go to a different country. They didn't want to have to move through so many different waypoints on their way to their new country. They don't really want to be in their new country. They'd rather go home. They don't want to have to learn a new language. They don't want to have to adapt to a new culture. But they didn't choose it. They didn't choose it, but they have to deal with it. So compassion, I think, goes a long way in those circumstances. Thank you, Irina. We're coming to the end of our time together. We've covered a lot of ground. Is there something that you'd like to address that I haven't asked you about?
You mentioned grief, and sure, I was born in grief, but I want to be positive. So I worked with my grief a lot, and that's why I can actually tell you the story about my grandmama and my own story. Another side of the grief, that the grief is the most accelerator of the truth.
So if I'm just going to repeat that back, the grief is the accelerator of growth?
Growth, yes.
Yeah. So it's like fertilizer.
It's like fertilizer. It probably doesn't feel so in the spot, in the feeling. But
I love that. Fertilizer doesn't smell very good most of the time.
I know. Grief doesn't smell good.
I'm only laughing because it's better than the alternative. I think your sense of humor goes a long way, but yes, if you think about stinky grief, it might be a little more palatable. Yes, that's beautiful. And those may be your final words, but just as we close, if you could leave a thought with the listeners out of all these wonderful points of your life that you've shared, what would you like to leave them with? Something to consider, something maybe to just try on in their life, a perspective.
I would leave listeners with Gabor's words that he told me in these 15 minutes. Trust life.
That's beautiful. Trust more in life. Irina Sadakova, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for sharing your story, your very hard to share story, your insights, your perspectives. It's been an absolute delight to have you on the Gifts of Trauma podcast.
Thank you, Rosemary. Thank you for this work that you do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The Gifts of Trauma is a weekly podcast that features personal stories of trauma healing, transformation, and the gifts revealed on the path to authenticity. Listen on Apple, Spotify, all podcast platforms. Rate, review, and share it with your clients, colleagues, and family. Subscribe and you won't miss an episode. Please note, this podcast is for informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for personal therapy or a DIY formula for self-therapy.